All right, thank you for joining today's video. We're going to go over it. It's a Tableau video on period-over-period changes. All right, so the data set I got today is the NFL player data set from 1999 to 2013. It's just all the offensive players. So I'm just going to show you like one player at a time and just show you their stats and just kind of go through like doing a period-over-period change for like a given metric, right? So I'm going to slide player over here. I'm going to go ahead and pick Adrian Peterson. It's funny because I'm actually a Packers fan, so with the chances I would pick him, but he's got good stats. He's good to use here. Because at this time there is more than one Adrian Peterson in the NFL, I'm going to have to filter by his college. So Oklahoma. Okay, so now I'm going to now we have our year here. I'm going to go ahead and change that to discrete. And I'm going to drag this over to rows. Perfect. Okay, so now what I want to do is, so now I have this up. Now I want to look at some of his data, pull up some metrics and start doing like some period-over-period comparisons, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pick, I'm going to go ahead and click on my measure names or measure values. Pop those on text. Then I'm going to take my measure names, drop those here, and I'm going to go ahead and filter to the ones I want. So I'm going to keep yard 1 and yard 2. Yard 1 is rushing yards, and yard 2 is like receiving yards. That's what I'm going to do, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just change this here. So if you click, you can click on this drop down. And I'm showing you how to do it. This is a way to do it via a table calculation, which is a pretty common method to doing this. I'm going to click on difference. Okay. Now, as you can see, let me do this first. I'm going to go ahead and change this one here to yard 1. Okay. So now it's showing me the difference, right? So if I take 1760 from 1341, the difference was 419. And so for here is 1266 minus 2097. So you have 831 less rushing yards for that year. So again, this is a pretty common way to solve this problem. One of the downfalls of it is that it's not as flexible as you may need it in the real world. For example, like during COVID, like we had data from 2019. Which was probably the last good year before COVID, before the outbreak. And then you really couldn't compare 2020 or maybe even 2021 realistically to 2019 because it was an anomaly. So it might have thrown off different reporting for reports you got at your company and so on and so forth. So you might want to compare 2022 to 2019. So let's say I want to compare 2013, which is probably more real. This looks like an outlier, right, to this year. What I can do is if I click here and change this 1, which is the offset, so I'm saying look back to 1, 2. Now this is minus this for that. This minus that gives me 296. Makes more sense, right? Okay, so that's going over table calculation. So another way you might want to do this, which is the way you'll see this done as well. I'm not a huge fan of it. The way I like to do is the last way, which I'll show that one last. But I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. And this is just going to be like doing a basic calculation where we specify like what years we want to change, right? So this is really good because it gives you more flexibility than a table calculation. Because you're able to pick which years you're going to actually going to compare, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is here, we're going to, let's actually drop that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we need to create a couple of things, right? We need to create some parameters because we're going to pass these in. We're going to pass in the dates. So I would say like prior date, like we like to call it. And I'm just going to use date. We're gonna use date here, and we're gonna give it a list. So we can say fix, and we want to grab it from Actually, let's use year, which I think is a integer. Yeah, let's use year. That's better. Okay, cool. So we're going to use year. Perfect. That's what we want to use. So we're going to hit OK. And then we're going to duplicate this. We're going to call it prior. Well, let's say current year, right? And at your company, you may want to call it something different. It's just kind of a preference thing. I'm going to change this to prior year as well. And we're going to pass these in. All right. Okay, so prior year. So what I like to do is when I'm working on these, a lot of times you're just trying to figure how things work. You want to make sure things make sense, right? So I'm going to go ahead and change this to 2013 and change this to like 2011, right? And okay, so now what I need to do is I need to be able to create like additional calculations. So like I have my year one, but I'm also gonna want to see like my prior year. Like I may want to see like the difference between like this year and this year. And a good way to do that is something like which is what I'm about to show you, right? So like if I want to compare these 2 years and I want to see that, or whatever year I want to compare rather than doing it in this table calculation format. So let's say current year rushing yards. I'm going to say if year, there we go. Okay, equals current year, then yards 1. I'm going to say end. Now, I'm also going to add z in, which basically if the value is null, it's going to make it 0. I'm going to do another video in depth to explain some of the caveats to that. But for presentation purposes and just for easeability, I think it always makes sense to add z in. So I'm going to add that, and then I'm going to drop it in here, right? Okay, so you see I pick up the 1266s, which is what I expect. And if I switch to 2012, it's going to give me that. Perfect, okay? It's giving me exactly what I expect it to give me. Okay, so then what I want to do is here, I'm going to want to do prior year, right? Actually, no, that doesn't make sense. We're trying to be more efficient with our code and stuff. Oh, not duplicate that. We want to duplicate this. And we're going to say prior year. Cool. Okay, so now you see 2011, right? Now I'm going to take the difference. I'm going to show it to you in this way, and it's not going to work the way you expect it to if you've come from Excel. But I'm going to show you how it works. All right. I'm going to show you not working. So difference in rushing yards. So I'm going to take that current rushing year minus prior rushing year. I'm going to say okay, and then I'm going to drop that. Now you're probably wondering why it's doing this, right? And the reason I represented it like this because it actually makes sense. So in Tableau, in general, unless you're doing like I would say like LODs, generally speaking, in these more basic level calculations, you're gonna calculate across horizontally, right? So I can't say go here and then jump here. It's gonna literally try to calculate what's there, which it did. See, and here you have a negative 970, which makes sense, right? So it doesn't work the way you expect it to. So to get rid of that, I need to drop the year, and now I get the current year rushing yards, which is 2012, and then the 2011 year. And I can see that again, makes sense, right? Boom. So it makes sense. And I can change it. I can say, give me 2013, and it'll switch. But I cannot show the year here because this calculation is not an LOD, and it's a basic level calculation, which is partly why I don't necessarily like doing this, because it's going to be I would say, typically speaking, a lot of times in business situations, you're not going to have the flexibility to always just go with like doing it like that, right? Because people aren't going to know what the year is. Maybe you add a box here so they can see it, but you need to have flexibility to be able to represent things in different type of capacities, right? So I think that's a really huge factor in it, right? Okay, so now I'm going to show you the way to do it the LOD way, which is I feel like gives you the most flexibility. Okay. So this is an LOD calculation. Okay. Again, I'm gonna do another video I'm gonna do a video on how these are calculated more in detail so it makes more sense, as well as doing a video on LOD calculations. But today I just want to kind of give you a short, kind of quick tidbit of how to do these calculations, because I know they come up and they're difficult. All right, so we got the current rushing year. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to call this one like LOD. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this fixed, okay? And what fixed is, it allows me to do a calculation at a specified granularity, right? So I'm going to do player, because I need to include the filter player, or just the players in general, but which includes Adrian Peterson, right? So I need to include him. And I also need to include the college. And I'm going to do colon like this, and then do sum, parentheses, parentheses, and then you end it with the bracket, right? Perfect. Okay. And I'm going to drop this here. Now, you notice the difference here, how it has this like, it's doing it for every year listed here, it has it here. Well, that's because effectively what's going on is you're calculating this calculation using all of the data that's present in the data set, and then using all the data that's currently represented in the data set based on the filter and the specification that's in the calculation. So then that way, that calculation effectively becomes row level. So then that way you can compare it with other rows, and you're about to see that, which is really the beauty of it, right? So now I can get rid of this because I don't really need to see that no more, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm going to change this to prior year. Okay, so now we have our prior year. I'm going to add that here. And you see the 970 makes sense. So now I'm going to drop that because I don't need that anymore. Okay, so now I need to make a difference calculation. That way you guys can see it, and it'll be very clear to you about what's going on. Okay. So let's take that difference, duplicate that. And we're going to say LOD. And we're going to say current prior. Okay, like that. And we're going to drop that down here. And we no longer need the other one. And now we have the actual difference in the calculation for any given year. All right, now that's really cool. Now, you may not necessarily want it represented like this because to the user it's kind of confusing. But again, it works really effective. I can change the year here to 2013, and then I can go here to 2007, and I get that difference. Or I can go to 2009, I get that difference. So that's really, really powerful, being able to compare them at any granularity. Now, where I would usually use this is if I'm doing like a KPI tile, which effectively a KPI tile is, I may just say like the player Adrian Peterson, and then also list his 1 year. So like for example, what I'll do is I'll just like click here and say keep only 2013, but I still, I still get to keep the data. Where if I do that over here, that's not going to work. So like, watch this. I broke everything because I don't have that specification at a higher granularity. So that allows me to keep it. So now I can do a KPI tile and say like Adrian Peterson, year 2013, year over year difference 117. And that's very, very powerful. Yeah, so that's it for today. Like I said, I'm going to follow up with some videos on LOD calculations, explaining how the basic calculations work when you start trying to do like filtering logic and how they work at the row level, and explaining more in detail about why they don't work. And I can kind of show you like in a more with some visualizations that'll make it really click, because it can be confusing. All right. Well, like I said, thank you for joining thank you for watching this video today. I really, really appreciate it. Please don't forget, comment, like, subscribe, and share. And have a great day. Peace.